On another exciting episode of the Animation Deliberation podcast, just as we thought that our team was going to be considering retirement, they get dragged right back into the Imperial drama. We're going to talk about Bad Batch right after these ads we have no control over.
Sing along if you know the words. Animation, deliberation, a conversation, and a celebration of our favorite action animated series. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, welcome back to another episode of Animation Deliberation, the podcast where we take action animation and cartoons seriously, but not too seriously. We are your hosts. I am Zuhair Ali.
My name is J. Scotty St. Clair.
And I'm Andrew Rogers.
We asked and you all delivered. We wanted your thoughts on what you thought of this season of Bad Batch and just wanted to hear from you guys more, and we have a flurry of feedback to go through. But before that, we just have one quick tiny announcement. So we are doing a structure change within the show. We are talking about so that we're able to give more time to episodes of content and movies and stuff. We were going to have a weekly episode that is just the news and the feedback and the anime minute, so that way we can have like everybody coming together. We don't have some people who just come in for the Star Wars stuff and just come in for the anime stuff, and we love listening to y'all's thoughts and stuff that you guys are watching. So we're going to have like this weekly episode that's just, you know, the social life of the show with our listeners. So we're going to give more details as we get it together, but we are excited to have that with you guys. And if there's any thoughts that you have on it, then please send us an email at animationdeliberationpodcast@gmail.com.
Yep, and just to piggyback off that real quickly, basically what you can expect to see are more episodes in your feed per week with fewer or less wait time between the release of the properties you're passionate about. If you have additional ideas, please submit that feedback just as Zuhair requested.
We strive to serve. All right, first bit of feedback.
Yes, indeed, from TJ Stafford. He writes in saying, I haven't been sending in much feedback for Bad Batch because I haven't really had much to say about it. It's been fine. Some of the episodes have been wonderful. Some have been episodes. I have fun with each outing, but I don't deny wishing for some greater contributions to the greater Star Wars universe. But I'll take what I can get. As for the rest of the season, I'm hoping to see the conflict with Sid settled and Crosshair rescued. Personally, I think it's time for Crosshair to rejoin the team. I think that's why Echo really left, to free up a bunk on the Marauder. But we shall see what the rest of the season brings. Keep up the good work, and may the Force be with you. And with you. Thank you, TJ.
Yeah, that is an interesting theory. I'm trying not to respond by talking about today's episode, you know, to add to that speculation, so I really don't have much to say.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to dance around it, but I think I'm on the same page with TJ. As we've kind of spoken about in previous episodes, it's been a season and a show of highs and lows, but you know, I think there's at least something to enjoy in every single outing, even if they don't knock my socks off. And as for the fate of Crosshair and Echo, I will reserve my thoughts until we get into the spoiler section of this episode, because I do think their ultimate fates may be tied. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, it's very hard to dance around things with this feedback, so I'm sure we'll have more thoughts for you. But, you know, glad to know that you're still along for the ride, TJ. It's always hard when we don't hear from some of you. We know you're out there, but we're just waiting for that message, just like Omega, to, you know, come through here at the end.
All right, so we're going to keep going so that we don't have to shadow dance any further. So next feedback from Andre Sparks. Hey guys, after seeing the Pablo episode, I think I can finally guess how this will end. Sid will try and turn the Bad Batch, but instead the Empire will try to kill her to keep their existence quiet. She will then call them for assistance, and Omega gets them to change their mind and help her. It turns out it's a trap! They are captured and taken, and then it's up to the now reformed Crosshair to save the Bad Batch and lead them out. Once out, they get a call from Rex and Echo, who have one final mission to stop the cloning experiment and save the scientists. Once they do, they retreat to the island of Pabu to never be seen again. Until the live-action Ahsoka series. Thoughts? Keep up the great work. Shimmy, shimmy, shimmy.
My number, I can, really dance around this one without spoilers. My number one thought on this of them showing up in live action is, as much as Tamara Morrison has done a great job of playing the live action clones, I feel like we need to get this moment finally of D. Bradley Baker in live action, specifically as Tech. I think he has much more of the physique that he could pull off the Tech, while you have Tamara Morrison come in and still do Wrecker and have this interesting balance of these are the clones that look slightly different from everything we knew before. I think it would be super fun to get at least one of them in live action. But like I said, D. Bradley Baker needs his chance. Not too spoilery for The Mandalorian, but we did get a famous voice actor to come back in The Mandalorian this week. I think D. Bradley needs his turn.
Yeah, I'm looking at a picture of him, and I do agree they would fit the Crosshair vibe.
Crosshair or Tech, or both?
Tech, excuse me.
Oh, okay, no problem.
Honestly, could be both.
Yeah. They probably look the most alike out of the batch, I guess. But no, as far as Andre's speculation here goes, I actually really like the pitch, and I kind of hope it's not one of those situations where we as podcasters and fans, sell a better story than what's actually presented. But what I really like about it is it ties up all these loose ends that we seemingly have at this moment, especially with Crosshair and the conflict with Sid. My only misgiving with it is the happily ever after on Pabu. I don't know how likely that is, given what we know about the Empire in the franchise going forward. So, and I can't remember if a season 3 was confirmed to be in the works at the same time as season 2 or what.
Not
but
sure.
Yeah, anything could happen, especially depending on the reception for this season overall and the shakeups at Star Wars in general. Who knows what's going to happen? But I like the pitch. I just don't know if it'll be that happy ending of a story. Maybe more bittersweet. We'll see.
Maybe not all of them will have their happy ending.
Right.
The way that you said batch reminded me of this conversation of somebody I'll keep unnamed. But I got a text saying, "Bad Batch, why do they look different if they're clones?" And I was like, because they're a bad batch of clones.
Yeah.
Great conversation. Glad we can clear that up.
Just as 2 snares and a cymbal fall off a cliff.
Okay.
Moving on. Nothing to see here.
Nothing to see here. And our last piece of feedback coming from Jordan Boyd. Hey all, I'm definitely one of those people who tune in mostly for Star Wars and Marvel, but that just comes to those are the ones that I watch regularly. I tend to only listen to podcasts about stuff I've seen. You guys are great. One thing that I feel needs to be mentioned is that while Bad Batch can be taken very seriously and is a great watch, it still is/was made to be a kid's show. So while some of the stuff may seem silly or slow, kinda childish, it's meant to be. So far, while I haven't loved every episode, I still think every single one has been necessary. Each has at least one plot point that is moving towards a hopefully big finality. Stuff laying the seeds for their breakaway from Sid, looking at the race episode, establishing Fee as a character/romance interest for Tech, the artifact one, or giving the 99 a glimpse of a better life, the latest Pabu episode. I will definitely keep tuning in for more. And thanks for that, Jordan.
Yeah, thanks for writing in, and thanks for checking in whenever we cover stuff that you're into. The beauty of this being a deliberation is the one thing that I don't want to say I can't agree on, but I think I wish it wasn't this way, is that I felt like Clone Wars was a kids show that they made in a way to appeal to the heavy Star Wars fans, and they did a good job. And it seems like they're flipping that around for Bad Batch, where it's like this being a Disney Plus series and then putting the resources and time into it, you would think it's made for Star Wars fans that just kind of have a couple of things that appeal to kids, like, Wrecker and Omega sharing the little popcorn thing and just having those childish moments, right? The little gimmicks, like the droids in Clone Wars were the thing that made it kid friendly a lot of the time. So it bothers me that the show had success to the extent that they put this much into it but still consider it a kids show, right? And that could be Disney being Disney, but that's just one of the things that bothers me about it. I didn't want to accept that this was a kids show, and
Mm-hmm.
if that's the direction they're going in, then that just kind of bums me out a little.
Well, it makes me think, and I'll provide the caveat that we've said on the show, like animation is not just for kids, but in some instances it is made for kids, and that's okay. But I think about how like George Lucas talked about when he made Star Wars for a young target audience. It was generally
Sure.
targeted towards like a 12, 13-year-old person, so that like he made most of his money off of the toys that
Yeah.
Star Wars generated. But I feel like especially that original trilogy was able to capture the imagination of a young person as well as a more mature person. And I think that's where one of the problems with the series as a whole is just the varying tone and like giving us these moments that feel like they're really like not pulling punches, and then to find out after the fact, oh, the punch was actually pulled. Like I'm thinking of like the Kaminoan senator, the fact that like just a couple episodes before we saw him again, we were like, oh, he dead. It's like, oh, he's not actually dead. So
yeah, and I want to not disagree with Zuhair, but kind of tack onto that point of, I think at the beginning, Star Wars The Clone Wars was 100% a kid's show. You had this very childish Ahsoka, the droids were saying Roger Roger every
Never
episode.
heard Yoda talk that much in my life.
Yeah, Jar Jar was like a big part of the first season.
Yeah.
Nothing against, but was very much tailored toward children. By the last few seasons, I can remember the Slaver arc was this huge upheaval where they're talking about genocide and how you treat other people. And then suddenly you look at the last season of the Clone Wars, where the Bad Batch was introduced, arguably the most adult season of the show altogether, because you have Ahsoka having to kill her fellow clones and all of these different things. So I think it's the expectational difference that they introduced them at a very dark point in the series. So when they gave the Bad Batch their own series, I think that was why I went in with this, oh, it's going to be a bit of a darker story of this Bad Batch of clones that is going to do all these things. Like, I agree it has turned out to be a kid's show, but I think it's the fact that we all went in thinking it wasn't going to be a kid's show that we're like, oh man, this is, what it is. Like, Disney, I think, needs to work on separating their demographics, because like looking back at What If, I remember that being a huge complaint from a couple of friends of mine that are parents, is their kids watch the first like 1 or 2 episodes with Captain Carter and T'Challa, and they're like, oh, this is fun. And then the 3rd episode, the Avengers die. The 4th episode, Doctor Strange goes evil. Like, they suddenly couldn't let their kids watch that anymore. And I know those same people, I've talked to them about Bad Batch with their kids, and they're like, oh, wait, my kids can like watch that show. It's totally good. Like some point during the first season, I was like, yeah, no, they're totally good to go. And I think we talk about Disneyfying, but Disney is not even good at setting those boundaries themselves. So it's hard for us to even figure out where they lie, because I don't think Disney knows where they lie.
Yeah, Disney just needs to have age restrictions, and if you're not a responsible parent that puts that on your kid, then it's don't let us suffer for that.
For sure. But I really do appreciate this feedback, because it did help me put things back in perspective of, oh yeah, we are talking about a show probably for a different audience than us.
I think it's one of those things where it's like, I don't want to accept that this is a kid's show, but it definitely has more kid episodes, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's a fair assessment.
And it could just be denial. Like, no one has to agree with me on that. That could just be my denial in hoping that they do better with it. But the show as a whole, like, if you put everything together, I absolutely love it. And I think I'm just like at like a 3.5 out of 5 for it, because of those slower episodes tempered down. But when it's good, it's good. We're gonna get into the episode, but I do want to say that like this is airing currently with Mandalorian. I like this episode of Bad Batch more than I like the Mandalorian episode.
Are you referring to the most recent episode of The Mandalorian, or?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I'll leave it at that.
Okay, well, I was going to use the segue of you saying absolutely loving it, and when it's good, it's good. That's the perfect time to transition to the episode synopsis. Spoilers for how I feel about this episode, but we are discussing Season 2, Episode 14, titled Tipping Point, and the synopsis reads as, Several clones imprisoned for disobedience against the Empire, including Hauser, are rescued by a group of rogue clones led by Rex, Echo, and Gregor, and are brought to Coruscant. There, Senator Chuchi questions them about their intended fate. With only a few encrypted data scraps recovered in the raid, Echo rejoins the Bad Batch on Pabu. On Mount Tantus, the transport's destination, Crosshair is interrogated by Hemlock about the whereabouts of the Batch, specifically Omega. He escapes in an unattended moment and sends a warning to his former comrades before being recaptured and subjected to more intense torture. After receiving the message and analyzing the data Echo recovered, the Batch learns about the existence of the Empire's secret advanced science division.
I love how in the episode that we had Haley on for, we were all geeking about how hot Hauser looked with his haircut. Like, they had no right to make him look that good. And then he just comes back like, you rang. I was so excited to see him and Gregor in this. Like, Gregor definitely has like a unique voice because he's just a little more of a psychopath.
Mm-hmm.
And getting him coming back, seeing Rex and Echo and what they're off to on the side, and just, I mean, can we talk about how insanely detailed the opening sequence was? Like, I watched Mandalorian first this time and went into this, and I was like, am I still watching live action until like a human's face came up? Like, oh my god, did it look amazing.
I had the exact same thought. I was like, you could put the like dogfight scenes from the Mandalorian side by side with this, and it would be hard to determine the difference.
They were just flexing at the beginning. You could tell they were like, let's take a little longer on some of these shots. Let's show them what we got.
It's like, we need to redeem ourselves from time to time for the way Zoo talks about us.
Yeah. I am a big fan of this episode. And one of the things I noticed about this episode is that it did what I think a lot of my favorite shows do that have a lot of different storylines and a lot of different characters. I think previously this show has a habit of just focusing on, we'll just have a Crosshair episode or we'll just have a Batch episode. This episode, we were actively hopping around in between multiple parties, including Rex and Echo's party. And in that sense, I thought it gave it a much more cinematic feel, and I felt like the pacing was a lot better. And it actually, I'm going to keep making these comparisons because it's, fresh on the mind, but I've been watching Game of Thrones, and Game of Thrones has so many storylines and so many characters to balance that. And an hour episode kind of flies by because it's again, the pacing, you're not spending too much time with the same characters and getting to bounce around. It really sells the scale of this Star Wars universe instead of the stories feeling a little bit smaller like they have been. So in that sense, I thought it was great to get forward progress on pretty much all of the storylines we're looking at right now. And I came away really satisfied in that sense.
It's so interesting. No, I was just going to say that we have, it seems like always differing opinions. Because I'm sitting here like, this episode was fine. I don't hate it. I don't love it. But it feels more like the ramp to get to the answer as opposed to the actual answer that I want to get. So like, it has me really excited to watch next week, but I'm not over the moon about this episode. I'm like, oh, okay, you just have my intrigue. Now how do you execute on this intrigue? So yeah, I don't have any complaints about it. I'm just like, oh, I wanted more, which I guess in and of itself is a complaint, but it's a good complaint to have. Like, let's go, let's get more of this. But I agree. The pacing was so much better. Like, they told an interesting story in an interesting way. It was just, like I said, I wanted to get more resolution than what we got of just like, is it a trap or not? Like, tell me the answer. Is it a trap? Let's go. Come on.
I love how we were just talking about if this is a children's show or not. And when we talk about the serious episodes, the youngest of the three of us is like, eh. But he was talking about how much he loved the Moana episode last week.
I had a great time. You're really,
I think we're proving something for you here, Jordan.
Yeah, you're putting things in a weird perspective all of a sudden. I'm questioning everything.
Right, and more. We're learning a lot about ourselves.
Yeah, this is my therapy. That's what this is.
There you go.
Yeah, early plug. So I've been talking with Matthew Carroll on Bingers Assemble about the John Wick movies because there's a new one coming out this weekend, and that's been one of the common themes is the way that they utilize tempo. Because whenever there's a point in any of the stories where they're explaining something, they have it overlaying with like the stuff that's going on so that you're not too drawn out and there aren't like too many slow periods. And I think like that mindset really adds on to the way that you described it, Jay Scotty, is that like in other episodes we would have them walking around the beach planet or watching them mine or Wrecker freaking out about heights or there's
Mm-hmm.
something going on to kill that time.
Mm-hmm.
Where in this one, like it really felt go go go, and I don't think I really thought about it until you brought it up just now. But that does add to just the high intensity that they're capable of doing, but they just don't execute on a weekly basis.
Yeah. Ever since you brought up John Wick, all my mind has been like going over is I want Crosshair. Like the batch keeps asking him if I'm back. Yeah, I'm thinking I'm back.
I put that clip up for me being back at work.
Oh my god.
I want to give praise also to, we mentioned him the first time Hemlock made an appearance, but the voice actor Jimmy Simpkins, getting to spend more time with this character this time around, I was just so sold on what an incredible job he's doing. Like that is top tier voice performance there. Like he is selling me on the sadistic nature of this character, and you can tell like his motivations, like this is like truly fascinating for him, and like the little look of glee he got when he got to like try his new toxins out or something like that. And it's just, even when he goes toe to toe with like somebody like Tarkin, I find myself being more creeped out by him than Tarkin. Like that's just saying in a short amount of time you have like done such a great job of creating and embodying this unsettling character. So I liked Rampart, and in retrospect I can see how Rampart served his purpose and ended up being expendable just to show us how callous the Empire can be, even to its own. But I really like the way Hemlock is being set up as this like big bad, especially with his sights on Omega, who has always been the one that we're trying to protect in this show.
I'll take a bonus episode of this show of just Hemlock and Grand Admiral Thrawn sitting at like a whiskey bar together, just chatting. Like, I could listen to those two voice actors talk for an hour. That'd be great.
Yeah, no, that would be phenomenal. And he just has really, like you said, Jay Scotty, become a villain so quickly. Like, I hate him just immediately. I'm like, wow, this person is terrible. They are absolutely, just, I abhor them. But I think it's the fact.
I hope you get stepped by a rank car.
Yeah, but I think it's the fact that, like, it's so vile but not mustache twirly. Like, I didn't feel like he was simple. I could see the layers to what was going on and why he was doing it and how he believed what he was doing without any of that having to be explained. And like, it's that weird magic that we so often talk about. Oh, I hate how this villain was this or wasn't that. I can't explain how they do it right. I have figured that out very quickly with characters like this, but they just found the magic and they did it, and I absolutely love it.
Mm.
And also, on the note of voice actors, because we're giving Jimmy Simpkins his credit, which he also deserves, I think the sheer number of clones that we had in this episode, D. Bradley Baker knocked it out of the park. It was like halfway through, and I was just listening to how different and distinct Echo was to Hunter to Tech as the three of them were having a conversation. And I was like, this is one person. I can tell you without looking at the screen which one of these characters is talking, and it's one person having this conversation with himself in a booth. That's crazy. And he deserves so much credit for that. Like, continue to not forget the man, the myth, and the legend himself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Always remember, did he die? No, he's just a badass. I can't get over it every week.
Yeah. Not to mention Crosshair, like
yeah.
So that's just such a unique voice. But yeah, definitely kudos to D. Bradley Baker. And again, if he has the opportunity to translate over to the live action side of things, like I don't really care who he plays, but like, if he was able to bring to life one of these characters that he has brought to life for so long and so well, that would be great. But I do want to talk a little bit about Crosshair and his whole journey on this episode. Like, how are we feeling about it? Does it feel earned that he might be on this redemptive arc? yeah, just what are your thoughts? Because I find myself being pretty. Had you asked me like not too many episodes ago, I wouldn't have been on board. But the way they've woven this story and like
Mm-hmm.
really shown how he's fallen out of the Empire's graces and has been subject to torture and experimentation, and now in hindsight he can kind of see how he forewent the family that he always had and some of his regrets now. I think it's being played very well.
I I think it is. I would have liked more episodes for it because we only got two, and granted, they were two incredible episodes. It would have been nice to see the progression more of him starting to question like why he's on the Empire side, and that it is more than just good soldiers follow orders. So yes, I think he is earning this redemption because we see how much he's gone through to get to this point and how much he's had to endure to finally be like, you know what, this isn't the right thing. Like, I need to just go find my brothers and kind of find like my new purpose.
Yeah, um, I tend to agree that I would have wanted more out of it, but I think at the end of the day, like even if they didn't give us this bunch of episodes to slowly set up that he doesn't, get along with the Empire anymore, I still think he would have done these same actions in this way. Like the way that we ended off last season, he didn't hate the batch. He just said, "No, I still respect and want to work for the Empire. You guys do your own thing." So suddenly, after being tortured and them asking for Omega, he's not going to sell them out because, you know, he genuinely still cares about them, even if he's not necessarily on their side. So I definitely don't have questions about him sending the message and being like, "Hey, you are in danger. Like, be careful." The rest of what happens from here, I think, is going to be where we really see whether or not he earns it. But I think they've woven with very little a very, very compelling story to say yes, he has. Um, yeah, I don't know how else to say it besides like they did a good job, but I don't want to give them the credit because they should have done a better job.
Yeah. I don't want to get too much into Mandalorian, but there has been a lot of like good dialogue of like why certain people like the Empire. And us as an audience are told that the Empire is like the bad guys, right? So it's super important that in season one of this show and in certain other shows, like they talk about like why people like the Empire, why they stick with it, the benefits of it, and this and that. So it's not ridiculously insane for him to be like, this is the life that I've known. They're giving me an opportunity to maintain it. I know how to be a soldier. I'm gonna stick around and just do what I need to do until I have a reason to think otherwise. And it's great that this progression of Crosshair is happening while watching an episode that's continuing the story of like the clones' rights and where is this prison camp that they're being taken to and why are they being treated this way? Why are they prisoners for, blinking at somebody wrong? So I think if it wasn't tied into that story, like if they didn't continue that parallel of those things happening at the same time, maybe it wouldn't have hit the same.
Hmm.
But because of the timing and for once good pacing, we're getting like validation of why Crosshair is making these moves.
Yeah, I think it was before it was pretty easy to villainize Crosshair, even if we understood where he was coming from. But I think more and more as I get further removed from it, I realize that he's more of a tragic character in the sense that like
Mm-hmm.
he's a sniper. That's what he's good at, and at a certain level, like not having to question what he does probably offers him some solace and allows him to like sleep at night. And that goes for all the clones, really. Like you hear it from Hunter, like we're soldiers, and um, the mayor on Pabu asks him, "But is that all you are? Like, can't you be
Mm-hmm.
more than a soldier?" So, in that sense, uh, the fact that he's actually having to have a conscience now, and like, granted, it took a lot for him to get to that point. I again, like, I can only say that like. I hear where you're coming from. Where it would have been nice to have a few more episodes to flesh that out, but what we're presented with, I'm pretty happy with. And when we got some feedback, I kind of teased that I thought Crosshair's fate may be tied to Echo. And it's in that sense that, like, again, bringing up Andre's feedback about this, like, seemingly happy ending, like, I just don't see it in the cards for Crosshair or Echo, really, because Echo has really like come forth as saying like, this is all about my brothers. Like, I'm going to do whatever it takes to save my brothers. So I kind of see the story trajectory there that he is going to like make a sacrifice play for his brothers. And I could see Crosshair having to do the same kind of thing to finally redeem himself.
Yeah.
So like, there's this talk about this open spot on the Marauder. Maybe one of the two of them will go back, but I think there's going to be an open spot on the Marauder.
Because I think in Rebels, the group that we meet up with is Rex, Gregor, and Wolf.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's correct.
I don't know.
Echo was part of Rex's original team, so who knows?
But at the time, Echo was assumed dead in Clone Wars, and they brought him back. And yeah, prequels are weird like that. There's a lot of those questions. But before we get too far away from villainizing the Empire, there's one character that I was sitting there thinking, I want to know what this person's deal is. And that was the guards in the torture chamber. Because we talk about how, easy it is to villainize the Empire or whatever it is. Like, what story is the Empire spinning to these regular soldiers and regular people that they can just openly abduct, arrest, and torture clones in front of other people and have them be like, yep, this is a thing we should be doing? Because, like, yeah, the Doctor knows that he's doing this for some greater cause, but, like, you have to spin some story to get all of these other people also on board with it. And that's part of where I'm just like, what is actually going on in this world? That guy is just standing there like, hey, Doctor, don't stop torturing him. Our orders were to keep going until he talks. Like, I know you got orders, but that's a lot, man. What are you doing?
Good soldiers follow orders?
I don't want to spin off too hard from what you're bringing up, but it does make me think of that other character. I can't remember her name, but the doctor with the red tinted glasses that Crosshair spared. It seems like she obviously she appreciates the fact that she wasn't killed, but it seems like she sees Crosshair for more than just a piece of Imperial property. And I'm really curious about what role she's going to play, because like, just like you brought up the line of dialogue, like the doctor said to keep going until he breaks, and she's like, he won't have information to give to us if he dies. So the fact that she seems like a somewhat redeemable character, that she would swear allegiance to this guy, like maybe her quest for knowledge or pursuit of her research is her toxic trait. No pun intended there. But yeah, as far as the way the public may view clones at this point, I do think it is just that, like, they're just viewed as property. We saw it in the last episode with Crosshair where he killed his commanding officer, which, they said afterwards, like, I commend that as initiative, which I thought was pretty great, because that guy, it was nice to see. I wasn't on that episode, but it was nice to see him get his just desserts. And even like the officer that was in charge of the abduction at the beginning of the episode, I noticed, like, with this show or Star Wars in general, if you want to know someone's evil, just listen to the way they say schedule. It's like, we have a schedule to keep. Okay, you're an evil guy, but
oh my gosh,
I don't know where I'm going with this, so I'll stop.
You're going with the bad guys are British.
Very British.
Oh my gosh.
What did you guys think of Tech being the driving instructor to get the tech turn?
The tech turn.
Mm-hmm.
When she said that, I was like, is that when you cut power, make a sharp turn, and pick it back up? Oh, there we go. Punch it.
She was driving fast. Like, I don't think we've ever seen the red trails coming off the Marauder that hard. But every time she gunned it, it was just full red out the back.
Yeah.
I love how Echo was just like, oh, so he kept up with the training, race you to the landing zone. And I love that they actually animated this, but where she was landing, there's people like under the ship, like freaking out and trying to move out of the way. Just watching them flailing their arms and just constantly turning around in panic just had me dying when I was watching that yesterday.
They did put a lot of effort into the background characters of Pavu this time around. They just all had something going on to interact with the batch.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm not sure I have anything else.
I think that's all I got as well.
Yeah, the tech turn was literally the last note that I had.
All right. Well, on that note, we direct you to turn your attention to all the places that you can reach out to us, including the email we mentioned at the top of the episode, animationdeliberationpodcast@gmail.com. It's a wonderful place to submit some feedback, so please do so.
And then you can also follow us on all of our social medias. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Animation Deliberation, as well as on Twitter at AnimationDelib1. And to top off all of that, you can also now find Animation Deliberation on StrandedPanda.com. That's right. We have fully updated the website. We are listed as well as the three of us as hosts. You have a bio on all of us, so if you are new around here, you can read up a little bit if you really want to, as well as you can find our personal socials and stuff there. I made a Twitter just in the event that any of you did want to communicate with me, and or one of you wants to trade me a ducklet, because I can't find a ducklet anywhere. So if somebody wants to help me out in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, hit me up on Twitter. Yes, no, I just want a duck in general, Zuhair. Not a ducklet. I
didn't know what a
Quaxley.
ducklet was.
Ducklet's
okay, I can get you
one.
a Quaxley. Jesus.
We can make that happen. But if you did want to follow me, that's Andrew Rogers AD on Twitter. A is in animation, D is in deliberation.
Yeah, I have all three. I'll get it to make a baby for you.
Well, this is getting weird. Anything else you want to plug?
Pokemon fans
know. Actually, I will continue on with plugs as we're making jokes here. This past week, I was featured once more on the Source Pages podcast. You don't get to hear these words often, so wallow in them while you can, Zuhair. I was wrong. The Shazam movie was fantastic. I was not going into it with high expectations. So if you want to hear all of my thoughts on how fun of a movie that was, totally check out Source Pages. And anything else that you guys were on or have upcoming?
Yeah, I definitely know that you're wrong a lot. It's just nice to hear you admit it from time to time. Yeah, so the usual, if you want to hear us talk about sports and it's just me dying of laughter every episode, 323 with Reed Murphy, anywhere you find your podcast. And also, as I mentioned, I was joining Matt Carroll on Bingers Assemble, which is also a Stranded Panda show. We did the first 3 chapters of John Wick. We got the new one coming out in theaters this weekend, and we will have a new episode for that coming shortly after.
As for myself, I will just continue to tease. There is a new show in the works for the Stranded Panda Network that I am heavily involved with, and that should be we should have some announcements and some news to share about that sooner rather than later. So I look forward to it, and thank you as always for tuning in. That's TOONIN.
As always, stay whelmed.
Until next week, muscle.
Thank you for listening to the Animation Deliberation Podcast, a proud member of the Stranded Panda Network. If you would like to contact us, you can email animationdeliberationpodcast@gmail.com or follow us on Twitter @animationdelib1. For this and other great shows, you can visit strandedpanda.com or join the great community that is the Stranded Panda Chat Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/svchat. Tune in next time, and remember, stay whelmed.